Hey all, more van interior work. And this one starts with me admitting to something I screwed up after the days I did the interior work to find this. This is all hanging down. The one on the other side has completely fallen down. And I mean, there's two things obviously at play here. One, it pulled paint down, which exposed some surface rust underneath. So what looked like just the tiniest little bit of rust was actually more of it under the paint than I realized. So that's part of the problem, but that's obviously not the whole problem because it peeled off everywhere. Doing some research, turns out I remembered incorrectly from the last time I did interior work, and Super 77 is not the right stuff for this. Like, this might be fine because there's a ton of surface area and it's wrapped around the back. So it's doing almost not like the glue is just kind of keeping it from sliding. It's not having to do anything structural. But this, where it has to hold it in place upside down to metal against the weight of the material in the foam, Super 77 is the wrong stuff for this. You need something stronger. There is 3M Super 90, which some people say works, some people say doesn't. But what I just ended up doing was ordering some weld bond contact adhesive, which is specifically designed for vinyl trim and Lando tops for cars. It's not weld bond contact cement, which you can find at Lowe's. They are different things. Everybody who talked about it was very specific about that. So I've ordered that. That should be here in a few days. At that point, I'm going to redo this. I'm going to redo the one on the other side. I'm not going to redo these until and unless they fail, just because I think these will be okay. If I start having problems with them, I will obviously redo them. But if I redo them, I'm going to probably just remake the panels. But yeah, these are probably okay. We'll find out later if they're not. This obviously isn't. So it's just starting to drizzle the slightest little bit. So what I'm going to do is back the butt end of the van into the garage. I'm going to peel all this off. All that rusty area, I'm going to grind that down, put some paint on it, so that when I get the other glue, that'll be ready to paint up. And then I'm going to use this and some other stuff to make as many of the other panels as I can, so that as soon as I get that other glue in, I'll be ready to move forward on this. So yeah, I'm going to get to that, see what I can get done, because I want to keep this project moving forward even with this setback, so that I can have this finished. I don't want this to be torn apart for an extended period of time if I can avoid it. All right, this panel is done. It's upside down. That's going to be the side on the floor. This is the kick panel under the forward window on the left side. Got a couple things I had to do in addition to just making it square. Is this fits around the wires for the computer for the van and for that power distribution block. So this will slide down over them, and then I'm going to build a little sheet metal cover. It's going to screw to the floor that's going to protect them further. So that'll be protected. This hole and this hole are both for these USB things that I got on eBay. So I'll have USB power at the back seat, and then I'll have USB power conveniently towards the rear. If I'm camping, this will be right next to the bed, so that'll be good. And then this here is for this cup holder. This is off a Honda Odyssey's second row seat. They're like screwed to the side of the seat. And somebody clued me into these as a good source for durable cup holder. This thing is gross. Ignore that. I'm going to clean it before I install it in the van. But there's just a button, and then it pops out. And they're apparently nice and solid. They'll hold good sized drinks. And then they just, if you close the lid, they just fold back up. They need this hook and this hook. You don't need to actually make holes for. You can just cut those off and then use 2 screws. But I decided to do it. What the heck? You do need to cut a hole for this back area to drop in, but I decided I was going to go with putting the hooks in and then this will get screwed down through those two holes and through that hole in the middle there. The reason I installed it exactly where I did here is because I can put these two screws through this panel and into the steel support, so that this cup holder will be not supported by this wood, it'll be supported by the actual metal frame. So that should make it nice and solid, but that just means that the back seat will have a cup holder. It's not like the most perfect thing. It's definitely not period correct, but I was looking at various options, and there's ones that look very similar to this but are a little more self-contained. They don't have this sort of gap on the side, but they're like $25 a pop with shipping. There's a bunch of other ones out there that are more vintage looking, but they all look either fragile, like they won't fit a decent sized cup, you know, they're designed for just a can of soda basically, or they look like the ones that are made out of metal. They look like they'll hold a decent one and fold away, look like when they're open, they're basically a gash risk. And since Kiddo's going to be sitting there, I don't want something sharp metal sticking out. So this was a decent enough compromise. This is ready to install. I'm not going to bother now though, because it still needs obviously the fabric put on it. So, but I can set this aside as, you know, done and work on the next thing. All right, so let's talk about the roof in here. The roof in the van, I can pan you all the way up and around, but it's going to look really the same. But anyway, the roof in the van unfortunately changes width slightly front to back. Also has those rounded corners. So I'm going to have to make it in multiple sections. Also because everything I have is 4x8 and there's nothing in here that works for 4x8. The width is at the center here. It's about 57-ish. It's narrower at the back and front. So I can't run a 4x8 piece of plywood this way. I have to run pieces this way. These bridges, for some godforsaken reason, are not at a useful spacing that makes any sense. So because I need to be able to secure the back of a panel and the front of the next panel to a rib, I have to work from more or less the center of a rib as my measurement point. So more or less the center here, essentially the edge of this opening for a light to the back, is 46.5 inches. And then from that same point to a similar point up here is 42 inches, and then from that same point to the front of the van is 32 inches. So I'm going to have to do 3 panels. I'm jotting this down. Like that. That's going to be the back, that's going to be the middle, that's going to be the front. So what I need to do first is cut basically these 3 in strips. Though now that I'm thinking about it, the front one I'm going to be cutting up so much I'm not going to bother. These two I'm going to get close, but that one I'm not going to bother because it's going to be cut in so many different directions. But I need to get them close, and then either I would have to measure in here very carefully or make patterns or something. Fortunately, I have a pattern, which is the old roof that came out of here. So what I'm going to do is lay these panels down. I'm not going to bother with cutting them to these lengths yet, but I am going to measure those out on the panels and then tape the panels together at the right widths. And then I'm going to lay the roof, the old roof, on top of it, trace it, and then use that to cut out my panels. And then that should allow me 3 panels of the right size to screw up onto here, make sure they all fit, and then once the glue comes in, I can cover them and install them. I'm obviously going to put some additional insulation and sound deadener in these gaps as well. So I'm going to set you up on time lapse and try and do that. It's windy as heck again, so you may see me accomplish this. You may see me chase large sheets of chloroplast across the backyard. And there we go. Rear panel, middle panel, front panel. They're not 100% perfect. Some of my edges are a little jagged, but I can clean those up, and the fact that I'm wrapping them in fabric will hide a lot of the sins. One thing I'm going to need to do, well, I'm going to get these all fit up, make sure they fit right, make sure I don't have to trim anything else so that they sit nicely. And then before I do the actual wrapping, I'm probably going to take like a 1/4 of an inch or so off the seam, basically, you know, so there's a little bit of a gap. That way, once I wrap them with fabric, they'll still fit, even though I've added the thickness of the fabric. These are not going to get foam because I don't want to add that height, because I want to optimize my headroom as much as possible. So these are just going to get wrapped with the pure velvet, nothing else, which is fine. They have a little bit of a give to them, so if somebody, you know, pushes on it with their head or whatever, it's not going to be a hard surface. So yeah, those are all cut, and the next thing I've got to do, which is probably going to have to wait till my partner's around, is test fit these up, see where I need to trim them, and make sure they actually fit in the van so that I can then get them, then they'll be ready, you know, to wrap.
Three days later.
All right, let me catch you up, because I didn't film for a bit because I just couldn't find the camera. This panel's now done and in. That panel is done and in, though I haven't done the cup holder on it yet. And I'm working on sort of this back corner now. So this is the panel that's going to fit there, though I'm going to make it out of wood. Basically, the way I made this was to just cut a piece approximately the right length, fit it in here where I wanted it, marked it against this edge, and then went in the width of something that looked like the right width. I don't remember what package it was. I just redrew the line to get it to fit in there, and it fits in really nice here. The top's gonna be a little weird no matter what, so I'm not really worrying about it. If it bothers me, I can always add some other thing in the corner here. These are the wires for the rear lights and stuff, but right now it's okay. I may decide I don't like it enough later. I may make it a little bit longer or something, but we're going to duplicate that in wood, make one for each side. And then this is not a template for the whole panel. This is just a template for around this, and make 2 panels that are 9 inches because that matches up with the height over there around, and it's going to stick out about as far as this one does here. It's going to stick further in. That other panel is going to overlap it. This is going to be made out of wood as well. This is chloroplast. We're going to make this out of wood just because it's going to take more of a beating. So what I'm probably going to end up doing is screwing a small block of wood to the back edge of it here so that this panel has something to hit up against in that corner, so it can't be pushed like that. But that'll be quick and easy. For right now, I've just disconnected the side marker light. I've just pulled this out because I'm going to be putting a flush one in. So I need to build everything around the idea of there being a flush one in there, not this light pushing everything out, because among other things, I don't want to build it so that this light is being forced like that, because it'll just rub and it'll end up causing a short. So I need to build the panels that go here out of wood. I need to build these things out of wood. I need to wrap this. I need to wrap those panels. But things are trucking along. As you can see, everything's getting somewhere. Oh, I also did that little bit up there. Oh, I have these very useful Honda Odyssey flip-out cup holders, but I don't like that they're gray. So what I'm going to do is use some SEM vinyl dye. It's the same stuff I'm going to use on the dashboard to just dye the outside of this a red color that's closer matched to the interior, so that I can then install this. I'm going to wipe it down with Prep-All wax and grease remover, mask off the sort of edges so that I don't have weird overspray on the inside of it, and then I'm going to give it a couple quick coats. I'm going to mask off and leave this button gray on the theory that if that's where you're pushing it constantly, that's most likely to get scratched up and ugly. if this die doesn't stick perfectly. So I'd rather just have the gray button that stays looking gray than have a red one that ends up scratched up and ugly. And here is the painted up cup holder. I'm really happy with that. It looks really good. Unfortunately, this stuff is so thin that it actually still shows the scratches. I didn't even think about that, so I didn't buff out the scratches in it. Now that we're where I can sit down, got a little bit of overspray, but not bad. There it is. The little spring popped out again. But yeah, it's nice. It looks like it was made that color, which is exactly what I wanted. And there it is installed. Does exactly what I needed to do. It's a nice sturdy cup holder. These upper screws are screwed not just into the wood but into the steel with metal screws, so this thing is not really going anywhere anytime in the near future. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. So that's where I currently am with the interior of the van. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll talk to you later.